I'm Bill Davis, and on behalf of the entire Office Hours team and, of course, our expert panel, I get to say welcome to our daily show. This is where we answer your tech questions live 7 days a week, so we're going to get right into those. Our reader today is Cindy Drozda. Cindy, what do we have on tap for today?
Our first question is from Craig Kadoki in Toronto. Alex, you've mentioned a few times that you're making prints of important photos, family history, etc., and movie studios making film copies because the digital archiving is ultimately fragile. What should we be doing for audio storage?
And actually, a lot of our expert panelists have raised their hands to address this. We're going to start with Alexander Knight this morning. Alexander, dive in.
Yeah, so I always try to make sure that any data that I have that's critical is backed up in 3 places. So local storage, having a NAS here is always a good idea with some kind of redundant RAID setup. And of course, offsite storage. I personally, now this is one option. There's lots of companies that offer cloud-based storage, but I use, for small files, I use iCloud Drive. Just like quick things I need access to. My entire iCloud photo library is there. And then, of course, for bigger projects, I use Backblaze. So Backblaze is really inexpensive, and you can back up as many hard drives as you want, and they have an optional service where you can pay for them to actually store that forever, basically. So I use that, and that way, if I need to go back and find something that I worked on 3-4 years ago, I can easily pull that down.
Jesse Kester.
They say a man dies twice. Once the moment after he exhales his final breath, and again the last time someone presses play on his podcast. So what you want to do with your audio, if you want people to be able to hear it later, is take the stuff that's really, really, really special, burn it to CD, and label those CDs and keep it for your family. I'm talking stuff like recordings of, kids as they're learning to talk, or, grandparents in their final years as they're discussing their lives and what they've learned, stuff like that. Burn it, archive it, keep it safe, keep it sound, and know that all audio disintegrates over time. All media will disintegrate over time, and there's only so much you can do to push back against that.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, you could go the analog route and record it, cut it to diamond disc from play on the Edison player. I still have those discs back there. But yes, you want to save it off in a PCM format, uncompressed, because who knows in the future, compression standards may change and storage envelopes may change, and you can always usually decode a stream of PCS audio pretty easily, even if the headers are mangled and so on. So I'd say archive it onto that format and then pick your digital storage. The problem is with CDs, burnable CDs, are not as robust as we once thought they were. And once the metallic coating starts to crack on those, you may not be able to read them. We thought they were archival for the long period of time. I'm not sure if I'd trust it. I'd probably go off to a flash drive and or a spinning drive to store stuff on, and then refresh it, transfer it to new media about every 2 years.
Craig Kadoki.
Yeah, actually, I was going to start this off. I was going to suggest that is it time to buy a vinyl lathe? Is it time that we actually, if we're printing things to paper and film studios are putting things back out to separated film to be archived, should we just be getting a vinyl lathe?
Paul Wallace.
I've got a bucket of flash drives, but I'm not going to I'll use some of those, but I've got 2 Synology NASs, one in Hot Springs where I am now, and one in Austin, Texas. And they have 5 8-terabyte hard drives. So they're redundant. It's just an issue of how long do hard drives last and how long do flash drives last. And it's really a big issue.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I think you can think about a lathe, but I think you really should be thinking about metal. So aluminum, copper. If you're going to lathe something, lathe it to metal. This one has the Voyager 1 has lasted. We don't know for sure, but we think that the Voyager 1 metal disc has has lasted 15 billion miles in 40 years. We think there's probably still. We haven't tested it. We don't know because it's so far away. We'll never get it back. But we did go through the trouble of putting it into metal. So I think you could back it up to metal. Back up to metal. But in seriousness, 3, 2, 1, 3 places. 2 different locations, 1 in the cloud. Like that's the basic math of where you want to keep things that are important to you, whether they're audio or anything else.
VJer. What does this mean? Jason Beish.
Yeah, Alex basically covered what I wanted to say, so I will add just another fun factoid about the space probe. Voyager is now approximately 1 light minute from us, and so light takes a minute. It took 30 years or 40 years or something to get to where it is. It's just,
there's a small team, I believe, in I met some of them years ago. That is the original Voyager team. Talk about job security. I think that they're still there because they're the only ones that know how it works.
No one else knows, yeah.
They get paid, and there's not a lot for them to do, but they have to be there. Because I was asking the person that was working with him, and he did a lot of other things. He was in a band, and he had he gotten into video and everything else. I was like, you seem to have a lot of time on your hands. He goes, well, I just need to be there to answer questions. So we were the engineers that put it together. So it's an interesting puzzle.
I wonder if they still have old tapes and things like that from how they design. Anyway, Chris Fenwick.
I was going to mention, Courtney said we're not certain about the discs. I had this happen last year where I started going through I had bought a box set of the DVDs for The West Wing, and I would say, they're whatever they are, 15 years old. 1 out of 5 of them won't play anymore. They just won't play. Now, they may play in a different player. I'm not 100% certain, but the other 4 out of 5 play just fine. I find a disc media to be super sketchy.
If you tried taking a Blu-ray reader for your computer and then you open up Handbrake, you'll find that it can open a lot of DVDs that the players can't. So a cheap player reader or whatever, I don't know why, but maybe it's because it's designed for data as well. But I have a Blu-ray, and I've had to take some discs and actually go and burn them, rip them and burn them to something, to media. To get them to actually play on my home Blu-ray player. And my home Blu-ray player was it's not the cheapest one, not the most expensive, probably cost $400 or $500.
Right. Now,
Jesse Castro.
go ahead. 1 second. Do you have any indication or any guess as to how old those discs were that wouldn't play?
I don't. So in some cases they were new, and in some cases they were probably sitting there for a long time. I got the gods must be crazy because it's politically incorrect
reasons.
So they don't sell it anywhere. They don't. It's not on any of the digital things. So you have to buy the disc. And then I remembered how politically incorrect it was. I just couldn't remember why they weren't selling it until I saw it again. And then the other one was Kundun, which is you can't get digitally either because it makes the Chinese very upset. So it's not on any of the services. So those are the 2, and both of them were unreadable. But I've had older DVDs that were completely unreadable, that were just regular run of the mill, like Armageddon, whatever. Like you put it in. I bought it in 20 years ago. It doesn't play on my player. I open it up in the Blu-ray, and I was able to rip it and then AirPlay it from my computer in my office to my system in the other room.
Everybody seems to want to get into this. Jesse, slip back in.
The reason I mentioned CDs is because you have to keep in mind that you're not archiving for yourself in the long run. So you might have a very intricate system that involves cloud storage and bespoke media setups that you designed and are beautiful and work perfect for you. But if the person who's trying to access it after you're gone isn't able to access it really, really, really easily, it doesn't matter if it's because it's decayed on a CD or it's because you designed a labyrinth through which the user has to travel to find the audio. So that's why I went with CD. Also, you could go with an audio cassette, like a regular old-fashioned audio cassette for the stuff that you want people to be able to hear later, that they just pop the tape in and they can hear your voice again, or something to that effect.
Courtney.
I didn't mention you can also burn it to an optical film soundtrack, because they're going to have to be able to read that optical film soundtrack to restore all those film prints that are stored in the salt mine. And I wanted to correct Jason. Voyager 1 is much further than 1 light second away. It's 22.5 light hours away.
Oh, wow. Jason Beish.
That's how long it takes a signal to get to it. 22
I
minutes.
guess I did my calculations wrong. I will take
a light
Courtney's
second
word
is
for that.
Low Earth orbit.
You have to carry the 7.
Oh, it's 128,000 miles per second. Of course, it's the 7. No, but seriously, Fenwick, I've never seen a DVD that the PlayStation 3 doesn't play, and they're really cheap.
Let's see. Alex, you wanted to finish this up.
All I was going to say is that Brody Hefner pointed out there's some good resources for audio preservation at the recordingpreservation.org. Also, the National Archives resources on preserving video, the archives.gov/preservation/format/video-toc.html.
And I'm just going to add a very quick note. If you have any old archival video of any kind, get them off there quickly, because I've gotten whole libraries. I just dove into my old digital 8 and high 8 tapes. Almost none of them read, and the one camcorder I still have that reads them off. The DVCam stuff I shot professionally is all reading perfectly, but some of those old consumer formats are really deteriorating fast. So if you have any VHS tapes or anything else, don't wait.
If you care, don't play them. Don't try.
Right. Just send them to a professional operation and get memories off if you want to preserve those memories, because Alex is exactly right. Those helical scan heads will just plow through the oxide if it's been sitting in storage for 15 years. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is next. GitHub Copilot has now been integrated with Xcode. Do you think this will have a positive impact on the experience of novice developers learning about Apple platforms?
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
I don't know. I think that what's happening with AI, because ChatGPT can now see Xcode, and I think Claude might be able to see it as well, is that I think that if you want to hack something out to show someone and test something to see if it would work, I think this is going to be a boom for that. Like it is going to be really like, and I'm going to be trying to do some of that this week, where I just try to throw something together and just ask it, like, I just need you to build this app. And I wouldn't publish that app. I would just simply get it to do that. Now, what it does is it kind of allows you to hand it to somebody who knows what they're doing and have them do something with it. I think that using it as a crutch, I think, will make it harder for coders to get good at what they're doing. But I do think that it can help them on certain routines and so on and so forth, to at least point them in the right direction. A lot of coders are already using lots and lots of resources in the sense that, I mean, that's part of what GitHub was all about, is like, and they're always looking for resources for cutting and pasting somebody else's routines, or trying to figure something out, that looking for other people who figured it out. So in a lot of ways, this could help you kind of figure it out. I think if you have no knowledge, you could maybe hack through something that CJ, I know, put together this incredible plugin. I think he did it out of Python in Resolve, and he's like, I don't know how to code. I just kept on asking it questions until I got it. And what it did is it took a movie, and it cut all the scenes apart, and then found the middle frame of every scene, and then published a still of that and turned it into a poster. So you could see the color, the color changes across an entire movie. And, he did that just by asking questions, so you can definitely produce things that kind of move things forward. I think that it has the opportunity to give people some pointers towards that process, but it also could, make it harder for novice coders to actually get good at things. If they lean on it too much, they don't actually learn the principles of doing it. So it'll be interesting to see how it affects them. I think that the folks that are going to get the most out of this are advanced programmers, because they know what they're looking at, and it's just going to type a bunch of stuff really fast, and they can look at it and go, oh, no, not that way, but this way, and everything else. I think intermediate could have, people hacking things are going to get a lot out of it. Advanced coders are going to get a lot of it. Beginners and intermediates might get replaced. And I think that's the challenge.
Let's go to the next question.
Next one's from the QR code from Rafat Al-Sayed in Toronto, Canada. Hey, good people. I'm using a teleprompter in production and want to utilize the screen for both prompting and as a return monitor for talent to interact with online contributors. Need to flip Fullscreen Display 2 in vMix and toggle quickly. Thanks.
Courtney Gooden, our resident teleprompter expert, is going to start us off. Courtney?
I would not flip the image in vMix or anything in your computer, because, once you flip it in the computer, if you've got to see whatever is on that screen locally instead of just in the prompter for your talent, if your talent is looking at the prompter and you're not, you're going to be very confused to try and use the mouse on that reversed screen. So I would suggest using an outboard converter like the MDHX, our favorite tool for dealing with conversions. It has HDMI or SDI in, and you can flip it. It'll flip horizontally in that unit, and use that in the prompter, and just leave it flipped all the time. You don't have to flip it back, because anything in that monitor needs to be flipped, and that way you can see things that you're feeding out to that monitor. You can bring up zoom and click on things on the screen without having to worry about the screen being reversed and your mouse moving the opposite way of which you think it is if you're seeing the reversed image on a non-mirrored screen. So keep that in mind, and then just use a ATEM or some other type of switch to switch between the two if you have two computers doing that deal, or just Alt-Tab to switch between applications, between your Zoom image and your teleprompter.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, we do this a lot. So we don't use vMix for it. We use ATEMs, and it just works a lot better. It's a piece of hardware that just does the thing that you need it to do. The ATEMs are so inexpensive now. I think that you may want to think about just having a little piece of hardware that does this. There's a couple things about the flip. If your teleprompter software can't flip in its inside, if the teleprompter software does not flip on its own, get another piece of software. Like that is table stakes. I mean, as soon as I can't flip horizontally, this is not a serious teleprompt software. So I would highly recommend just getting software that will do the thing that you need it to do. By the way, we had a conversation about this the other day. I'm testing this. It looks really good, actually. This is called Power Prompter. It's Mac only, and it's got a lot of features to it. So the editing interface works really, really well. I don't have any text in it right now, but you can see that this is the test. But you can have a separate screen that's running, but continue to edit in the edit text. You don't have to change states. It's got a lot of control over. I'm researching right now what hardware. It says it will talk to hardware, so I'm looking at that right now. But it's probably the most featureful on the Mac, the most featureful teleprompt software I've used. We were talking about that the other day, but it obviously has reverse for the outboard. So being able to do that, and again, even like Makana's teleprompter software, we just switch back and forth. It's something that can just be added. So there's no good excuse for that. So it should be able to feed that in, but I would feed that in separately. And then what we do is we put it on Zoom. The thing to note, if you decide to use something like the decimator, which is what Courtney showed, you can flip the whole image. People generally won't notice, unless someone's showing something from the far end. If they're just coming on as a person, they won't notice that they're backwards. so like it's just a person flipped. If a person gets flipped and there's no text, people won't notice. That you see this all the time in TikTok. People are flipping images because it keeps it from getting caught or on YouTube. It keeps it from getting caught by the Google Eye. So they, flipping images, you could flip you could flip the whole image if they're just talking to people, and they won't notice unless they're pointing towards a certain direction. The other thing is that, what we also do is we key the teleprompting over top of the person. So we don't just flip back and forth. They have things that they want to say, or we want to give them notes. And what we'll do is we'll actually have, set it up so that we can key the bottom and give them the notes. So they're still talking to the person, but they're also seeing their notes inside the teleprompter. Usually, we try to keep people from using teleprompters, to be honest. When they're interacting with people, we give them notes either down the side or across, or even sometimes in the middle, where it just appears where they want to look. But they're still seeing that person's reactions. And we find that to be more effective than switching the states back and forth.
I wonder if that's why I'm seeing so much content on my social feeds that's backwards, that they're flipping it with text. I'm having to read stuff backwards everywhere, driving me nuts.
If it's in YouTube, they do it because there is a belief, I don't know if it's always true, that if you flip the image, that YouTube can't see the algorithm doesn't see that you've copied somebody else's material. They flip it over to
maybe that's what's doing it. It's driving me crazy. Chris Frenwick, you wanted to get in.
I thought that was just TikTok's way of making the mirror image look right when
in TikTok it might be that way. I know that in YouTube there have been talk about flipping it so that you can keep the algorithm from finding you. You use their footage, but with TikTok it could be something else.
Yeah.
So they flip it over to make it look right.
I thought that was just TikTok's way of making the mirror image look right when
in TikTok it might be that way. I know that in YouTube there have been talk about flipping it so that you can keep the algorithm from finding you. You know, that you use their footage, but with TikTok it could be something else.
So, Alex, what was the teleprompter software you were mentioning?
It's called Power Prompter.
Power Prompter.
It's like $50. It's like on the Mac App Store. But it's again the most full-featured one I've seen so far, and it's got a separate window.
Yeah, I use one called Teleprompter. Great name. It's like $8 or maybe 15. I don't remember.
That one too.
What I was going to say is this is one of those solutions where it's kind of like if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I personally would consider, because it's free and it's a lot cheaper than other options, I would definitely consider something like OBS to do this, because you could flip one image, you could take a window off, you can capture a window off of the other thing. And if your talent wanted to control it, you could give them, this is what I always say. If I can figure out how to program it, anybody can do, because I'm kind of dumb. So you could set up like a Stream Deck to toggle between the different views that person wants to see and just put it right in front of them on the desk. Just a thought.
Courtney, our resident teleprompting guru, who has a golden statue sitting behind his shoulder for teleprompting services to the industry. Take us out.
Well, Alex, I use $1,500 software that I've been using for 30 years, and it doesn't flip.
It doesn't flip? What is wrong with that? Well, it's because it's old. It's old. Like, I don't know.
I'll tell you the reason why. You guys are thinking too small, because you're talking about only one teleprompter and only one person running it and only one person reading it. In a lot of teleprompting situations, you'll have, you want the in-camera thing, but they've got a guest over here and they want to see their notes over that guest's shoulder. Well, you got to put just a regular monitor over that guest's shoulder. So you have to run into a distribution amplifier. And if your software flips the image, they're going to only look at backward text on that over-the-shoulder monitor, because everything's flipped. So you only want to flip the image that's going into the mirror of a teleprompter. And it doesn't matter, and it should stay flipped if the person is going to be looking at that image through the mirror all the time, so that your Interatron image should be flipped as well, because it'll look normal to the person looking at them, because left-right will be flipped, and then if the person holds up anything like a sign, it'll read correctly in the mirror, because it will be flipped. But if you have to have a local monitor for you to operate that output, then you're going to have to flip it back. So
I'm just saying
in your monitor.
I get what you're saying, but it should still have the button. Still have the button. Now, by the way, this is in Power Prompter. Just as a quick example, the one over on one side, this one is the local monitor, and this one is the published monitor. So it does two monitors, so that you're still looking at it. So you could, so you can
for the operator, but
when the operator's here, but you could cut this and send it to somebody else as well as a separate monitor. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that. I can see why you would say that there's a use case for it not to do that. But not having the button that says flip it is crazy. Like it's not. It's like such a small
monitor. You just go and it's flipped.
But I'm just saying that you by the software not being able to do it is nuts. Like it's a nutty.
Play nice, children. Play nice.
It's nuts. It's like
we have an audience.
Well, this is one of the reasons I didn't
disagree. Being having the most experience of any teleprompter operator living on Earth right now.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and I can see that there's lots of cases for it to be stay straight. But to build a piece of software or to have a piece of software because you bought this software, it's not like you wrote it, right? This is not your software. This is somebody else's.
Well, and my software didn't flip it either.
Okay.
Flip it in the monitor.
So if you're using something,
like
all I know is I asked Chris to flip. I asked Chris how hard would it be to flip Makana's teleprompter view, and he came back like an hour later and said it's done.
I flipped it in.
There's no button. Just hit the arrow button.
CRTs. I had to go into the CRT and modify the CRT to
Oh man,
so that's how real men teleprompter operate.
I have to admit, I take both paths, and based on probably talking to Courtney in the early days of the show, I actually don't buy flat panels unless there's something like the Lilliput's or something like that have monitor flipping as opposed to software flipping. But if I'm out with an iPad, sure enough, I'll do the software flipping. So pick your poison. Great discussion. Great discussion. Let's move on to the next question.
Next one is from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas, and on the panel today. Minisforum Small Computers has Cyber Monday deals till December 4. Which model is best for production?
Alexander Knight, drive us home.
This is one of those. It depends. What are you doing? If you're comfortable with Windows and you're using a lot of applications. Now, in the production world, obviously, there's a lot of applications that are specifically designed only for Windows. Applications like vMix come to mind because of the tight integration with NVIDIA graphics cards and their APIs. So also on the NDI side of things, there's still a lot of NDI-specific tools that are only on Windows that have not made their way to the Mac. So, of course, the Mac Mini is the other competitive product in a small form factor, which works for a lot of people as well. But this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the Cyber Monday or Black Friday sales here. So they have a lot of variety of different ones, and you can get them configured for not a lot of money with a pretty decent graphics card from AMD in there with an i9 processor. I'm very curious about, this is an interesting one that I have not seen from them before, the Atom, which has a LCD screen and it's got 32 gigs of RAM with a 1 terabyte SSD. So for $639 US, that looks like a pretty good PC in a very, very tiny package. So there's some really interesting ones there.
Courtney, you had some thoughts?
Well, you know, my favorite, if you're just doing rudimentary stuff, these GMK techs and I just checked, this is the size, this is the whole computer right here. It has all the ports you'll ever need. It is on sale right now. Let's check for $143. And I think there might even be a coupon on that. Maybe or maybe not. No, not today, or 5%. But $143, and that's with 12 gigabytes of RAM. And that one is, I think, 256 gigs of SSD, and it is a fast SSD. It's running, like right now, look, here it is. It is running DaVinci Resolve right now. So you can see it's up to par on doing those kind of tasks. I mean, I wouldn't use it for playing games or anything, but for it'll run anything that Windows can run. It comes with Windows 11 Pro, so you can remote into it. Remote desktop's included in Windows 11 Pro. And, it's hard to beat at $147. And it has, two 4K HDMI outs on it.
Remember, this show is driven by your questions. You can submit them. The easiest way is just to go to askofficehours.global / what is it for our questions, I think?
Just askofficehours.global.
Askofficehours.global. Yep. And then you can participate and drive the run of show with your questions. And for those of you in the Mukana interface, which is a little more complicated, but there's a website direction to get there, you can vote on those questions and participate in the discussion that happens every day during our show in the back end. Okay, if I had a warning klaxon sound effects, I would strike it now for our next question. Next question.
From Alex Lindsay on the panel today in Novato, California. I hear it's somebody's birthday.
Which is words that strike fear in my heart.
It's Paul's birthday.
It's Paul Wallace's birthday.
I'm 80.
Okay, wait.
I'm 80 today.
Oh, wow. A big birthday. Wow. Okay, so for those of you who might not be used to the show, we have a tradition. We do sing happy birthday to people.
Ahead of time.
It's an awful tradition.
Do not expect.
I'll forgive you ahead of time.
And are we ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Paul Wallace. Happy birthday to you with lots of
Thanks,
legs.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a great experience.
You can tell we've been practicing.
We like to call it the beautiful car crash. So there you go.
There we go. Happy birthday, Paul. Let's go on to our next question.
Robert Linkrum from Belmont Shore, California. What exactly is our PSF, Progressive Segmented Frame? Is this just a fancy way of saying interlaced?
Jesse Kester's going to start us off. Jesse?
not just a fancy way of saying interlace. So what it is taking a progressive video signal and converting it to an interlaced pipeline. So there is something unique at the start that makes it different from other interlaced, but once it turns interlaced, it is interlaced.
Jason Bache.
So here's what makes it different. Both fields come from the same instant in time, so there's no temporal difference between the fields. So when it's reassembled, it's indistinguishable from real progressive content. That's the long and the short of it.
Alex Lindsay.
Definitely not interlaced. So a little bit of the history of this is that a Japanese camera company went to a very large film company that does lots of space stuff. And movies about space and so on and so forth, kind of fantasy, fiction, sci-fi kind of things. Lots of glowing lasers and so on and so forth. Anyway, glowing swords and so on and so forth. And they said, "Hey, what do you think of using this? What do you think of this camera?" And they said, "It's great, but it doesn't do 2398, which we need. We need to have 2398, or we can't use it." And so the Japanese had to go back and figure out how to build a camera that would take the interlace that they had and turn it into 2398. And so specifically, PSF is designed to do exactly what was mentioned before, is to take 2398 and give it and create a cadence that can be reassembled perfectly back into progressive, not kind of progressive, not anything else, but to make that conversion. If you run it through interlace, it looks horrible. Just in case you're wondering, you can see big chunks of things. So it is definitely not the same thing. And not many things pay attention to it anymore. I mean, it was a moment in time when that was necessary, and we don't have a lot of cameras that do that anymore.
Courtney Gooden.
Right, and what everyone else said was true. It's not really interlaced in time. PSF was a way to deal with transferring film to video back when video was analog, and the monitors and the horizontal frequency circuits couldn't handle high enough frequency at that time to do an entire full frame progressive. So it would divide that full frame that was captured, a full frame at a moment in time, and send it out as an interlace signal, odd lines first, then even lines, or vice versa. But they were all captured at the same time, so there would be no little comb filtering effects on the screen. If it's a segmented frame, that's the difference between interlaced, which is captured every other frame, every other line per second in time, so they're separated by time. PSF is not separated by time between the fields.
So it eliminates all temporal offset, I think. That's interesting. I didn't know that before. Next question.
Next one's from Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California. What are your Cyber Monday purchases, and is that day still relevant?
Interesting discussion. Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
So the one that I think was brought up, I can't remember where, but I'm going to try it, is I'm going to try to delete my Adobe membership and then re-sign up, because they have a Cyber Monday that is $30 a month for all of the apps, as opposed to the $59 one for all the apps or whatever. So that one I'm kind of looking at, even if I have to create a new account. Like, there's nothing I'm saving with Adobe. So we'll see. It's a lot of money. There's a big delta between the two. And right now I don't have all the apps because I'm paying $30 a month for the handful of apps that I have. So anyways, I'm looking at that one. Omniscope is a great deal today, 30% off. So I would definitely check that out. I know Boink Software has some stuff that's 30% off. Audio, I can't think of the Audio Elements, I want to say. It's for Final Cut. It has all of the, it lets you build soundtracks and so on and so forth. Is much less today. Those are the things that we're paying attention to. I already own all those, so I'm not. Those are the only things that I'm looking at right now.
Paul Wallace.
Yeah, I went in Sam's Club and looked around, didn't really see anything. And then I went to the Goodwill store and bought a $9 used microscope. That's not really a Friday
Cyber
deal,
Monday.
but
Yeah, nice.
Cyber Monday. But that I've exercised restraint.
Always a welcome idea for me. Courtney Gooden.
Goodwill Monday. Here's something I purchased, and it's on a great deal today because I have a bedroom TV, and I put a new one in, and it has those bad speakers that come out the back or come point down, and so I went, oh, well, I need a sound bar, but I don't want, the sound bars these days are they have a bass, separate Bluetooth bass woofer, and they take up too much room. And so I bought one of these, and look at the price of this sound bar, and it sounds really good. I have
$28.49.
I paid $43 for it on Black Friday. Today it's $28.49, and it sounds good. It has a little bass port on the left there, and it's good and loud. It has Bluetooth, a line in, and optical in, so it has 3 ways of connecting. It is compatible with the Fire TV sticks, so you can control it from your remote control on your Fire TV, if that's what you have on your remote. And so I'm pretty happy with it, listening to it yesterday from across the room. Much better audio output than the TV that I put in there. And for $28, hard to beat.
Alexander Knight.
Waves.com. If you're into audio production, they have a ton of, Waves has everything on sale all the time, but they, especially for Cyber Monday, they've got this deal now where you can, let me just pull it up here. They've got 3 plugin bundles for, oops, sorry about that. My mouse cursor's on the wrong. Anyway, they've got buy 3 plugins for $50 or buy 6 for $99. So take a look. Everything seems to be on sale. They've got lots of good plugin bundles. So if you're into audio, that's a great option.
Alex Lindsay.
The Mac Minis are on sale for $499. The base Mac Mini, $499 at Costco. So that's as low as the educational pricing, basically. So it's pretty inexpensive. Also, on the other end of what Courtney talked about, the Ambio soundbar is $800 off. So it's more of a discount than what Courtney's is like $100 off or $50 off.
How much
whatever.
you end up paying?
$1,700. But I will tell you that it is literally the most amazing soundbar I have ever seen. I don't own one. I have a discrete system, but a friend of mine has the Ambio who does a lot of surround. He's like, you got to listen to this. I don't understand it. Like, I don't even understand how the Ambio soundbar works. Like, it is the most magical soundbar I have ever seen in my entire life. It's like, I think that you may have to be careful because there could be witchcraft involved with that one. So it's $800 off, and it's an amazing soundbar.
Jason Beish.
Ubiquity's switches, some of them are on sale. Not their routers, mind you, and not their newest Wi-Fi access points, but they do have a couple switches that are on sale. So, yeah, I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it, but if you've been looking at it, it's a pretty good deal.
And Gordon Lake, if your wallet is smoking, it is not our fault. It is standard disclaimer. We just tell you about it. Whether or not you dive in or show restraint is entirely up to you. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas, discussed Film Convert Hazy plugin for Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro that adds subtle glow to footage and reduces sharpness and contrast of shooting digitally, making footage like film.
Let's start with Jason Beish. Jason?
I hate to bemoan this, but I really don't like this kind of mess it up plugin. That's my general feeling. So I'll butt out and let other people be more technical about it. But as a rule, I would rather fool around with contrast and color myself.
Let's see how Jesse Kester feels about this. Jesse?
Oh, I have no words of comfort for this audience. We just got through a hiring cycle, which means I watched about 100, 200, somewhere around there, show reels. Knock it off with the film overlays. Just stop. All of you people who are applying for jobs, stop with the film overlays. And if you put picture information in your sprocket holes, you are done. We are deleting your application.
You did not use Kodak stock films. Stop it.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'm not a big fan of adding effects to it. Just shoot it the way you're going to shoot it with the camera that you shoot it with. Color correction and a lot of those things I think is great. Adding a lot of the junk on top, I feel is a little bit of a I've seen it used well, but you really have to know what you're doing. And I think that a lot of people just add it as a knee jerk of, I'm going to be like cool like the kids, and it doesn't usually work.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, in the world of film, we used to use the Pro Mist filter on the camera, for actresses of a certain age, because it reduces the lines and makes everything look smoother. But it does add such an awful haze to your film, and it is really ugly. And once you bake it in, it's almost impossible to unbake. So I would say don't use it at all unless you have an actress who is insisting on.
Chris Fenwick.
Here's what I do, and it'll save you money. Take the layer, duplicate the layer, Gaussian blur the layer, change the transfer mode. I think it's screen, I believe. Adjust the opacity, decide you don't like the look, and then undo everything you just did and go back to where it was.
I resemble that remark. How many times have I done that when I was trying to learn how to process my images? Next question.
From Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona, is the screen on the Elgato prompter large enough to be used from about 6 to 8 feet away from the subject?
Jason Bache, what do you think?
Well, Jack, I have to start by saying something you probably already know. Prompters are not for the uninitiated. Somebody that doesn't know how to use a teleprompter really it's just going to be glaringly obvious. But no, to answer your question, I have 10/20 vision, and I wouldn't do this.
Alex Lindsay.
I think it's a 9-inch monitor. Courtney will be able to say more accurately. It's a 9-inch monitor. It is 6 feet would probably be the outer edge of where I would put it. We've used 12-inch monitors at 6 to 8 feet with no problem at all. So it depends on the person. I mean, it could theoretically work at that distance. I think it's really designed as a desktop. 3 to 4 feet away kind of teleprompter. So you're kind of getting outside of it. And the other thing that I would say is as you start moving away from it, just remember that it doesn't tie in with anything else. Like it doesn't have video input. It's a USB-C output from your computer. That's the biggest reason that if they had built that with a video in that I could switch to, I probably would buy it. It looks like a great teleprompter for a desktop, but I need to have flexibility on what goes into it, and only being able to connect it to my computer is pretty limiting.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, we use 8-inch prompters direct view up to about 8 feet. I wouldn't get further and it depends, of course, totally on the eyesight of the person. Because you'll get someone, I can see this fine. I can read all day like this. And then the talent comes in, they go, boy, are those words on that prompter? And they are just, you'll find that a lot of people are vain, will not wear their glasses on camera, and then they can't see. You can make the words bigger on the prompter, but the problem with a small screen is then you only have like 3 words up there at a time, and you're going to have to be scrolling, and you won't be able to read ahead, and you will be talking very stilted like this because you're only seeing 3 or 4 words on the screen at a time if you make the font bigger so that they can actually define the words. So it is problematic with that small a screen. I wouldn't put the talent further away than about 6 feet. Like Alex said.
Chris Fenwick.
I have one. I'm looking at it right now. I would say you don't buy a Ferrari to go off-roading because it's not made for that. And I think to Alex's point, it could have a video input, but it's not designed to do that. It's for what I'm using it for, eye contact with people that I'm talking to. Yes, Bill, I saw you scratch your head because I'm still looking at you. It works. For that, it works perfect. And it works simply. It's not a bunch of boxes and cables and flipping and whatnot. But I'm also not trying to read off of it. Mine is there. I'm touching the glass. So it's an arm's length plus a little more away. But I'm just looking at faces on it. For that, it's awesome.
I'm tempted to do this just because Chris mentioned it, just to give you a sense. And nobody's cutting to the shot because they're thinking, no one's going to want to see him doing that. Anyway, I was not doing that when he called me out. I will say, having been on camera a good little bit over the course of the many years, prompting is a funny thing, and it's individual for each people. I heartily endorse, I think it was Jason's original thought, if you don't have a lot of experience working with teleprompters, they can really mess you up as easily as they can save you. When you do have a lot of experience with them, you will find that prompter for me is different modes. If I'm doing something, let's say that's been vetted by legal and I have to get every single word right, I want a nice big teleprompter and I want to be able to read, as Courtney mentioned and others have mentioned, the entire paragraph to see where I am and what emotional or emphasis points. If I'm just doing something for myself in a stand-up, though, I will often drop down and just use keywords. I want to talk about this topic first, then I want to make sure I hit this, and then I want to make sure I hit that. In those cases, really small prompters can be perfect because I don't need to see much data. So I would just say prompting is a specific set of skills, both for the reader, certainly for the operator, and certainly for the project. And I bring them in and use them when they're going to help. And I have been in too many situations where instead of helping, they've hurt and made a normal person seem like a wooden robot. And to me, that's the biggest unacceptable thing I can do to any talent. Next question.
Todd Reynolds in North Adams, Massachusetts. iPad buying advice requested. Need to buy a new one to replace my 10-year-old for score reading. One with new pencil preferred for future-proofing, but no other requirements. Where to find the best deals for not the latest and greatest?
Alex Lindsay.
I think that you said you wanted to get the new pencil. If you're trying to get the Air, I believe, is the lowest cost one that you can get that will see the new pencil. So if you get the older ones, they're not going to see that. So the new Pencil Pro, you can see here that I kind of went through the ordering process. So it says you can add the Apple Pencil Pro there. So that is that's what you're looking for there. And I will say the reason I know it is because I've been researching it, because I went to the Apple store to buy the Mac Mini and I started playing with it. The nib is softer and it feels way better. Like it's just like I was like, dag nabbit, I can't believe I did that. Like I can't believe I tested it. Now I can't get it out of my head. It's just a little softer than the one that the one I have there. So it doesn't feel like you're going on glass. It feels more like a surface, even though it's on glass. So they improved that as well as all the other directional and other things that they did with it. So the Air is the one. If you're reading scores, I'd probably get the larger one. I showed this one on I think it's like $7.99 or whatever. But the larger one is the 13-inch. You'd probably want that if you're reading it in front of people.
And I will just say really quickly, I'm in love with Apple Pencil for markup of scripts. I've been doing a lot of reading, and to be able to circle and draw your eye to that for a script you're performing, magic.
I don't get an iPad without a pencil.
It's just if you're a note taker or want to bring your eye to something on a script, markup, they're fabulous.
I mean, I use it the way I start. We've talked about this in the past. The way I build my presentations is that I do an outline in Notes. So I just outline it all. And I've learned that I can do that in Keynote, but I still do it in Notes because it's usually I'm wandering around thinking about it. And then I open up Notes on the side and I open up Keynote and I sketch it all out on my iPad. So I've got Notes on half of it, Keynote on the other half, and I sketch every frame that I want. The reason I do that is so that I don't get caught up looking for fonts, looking for images, trying to figure out what that logo is going to look like. I got to keep the thread, so I'm trying to, the first thread is to keep the outline of this is what I want to say. The second thread is to draw the pictures and not think about how I'm going to do it. Just this is what I want the image to look like. And then I just backfill all of that to put it together. And then I run through it a bunch of times and change everything. But the iPad is I don't know if I can build a presentation without an iPad. I've been doing that for so long.
Next question.
From Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. I had a video pop up in a feed showing a lens cover for weather, which spins the snow and ice off the front of the camera. Educate me, please.
Having watched a little of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade this year where they had all sorts of problems with the rain, I wish they had some sort of a system like that. Jason Bache, dive in.
Okay, I have never heard of this, and it seemed strange to me, but I did find, I think what you're talking about, the SpinTech RD105A Rain Deflector Kit. This claims to take a Tiffin filter and spin it at up to 3,000 times per minute, which is not terribly fast, and they're claiming that has a centrifugal effect, which instantly removes rain. Oh boy. If your camera is directly getting any sort of weather on the lens, I'm going to leave it at you're doing it wrong and leave it to Courtney to clean up.
Courtney?
No, and I did watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and I agree with you, Bill. It was horrid because they had all these cameras on jib arms are just guys that had a rain cover over their camera, but obviously you can't put it over the lens. And they've been making these for 50 years, so they are not new. They used to be big and have a motor off to the side that would spin a large glass disc, and you put that in front of the camera, and they'd use that for shooting scenes where you're shooting, at the ocean edge or on a boat where there's spray coming over, and it's a deflector. Here's one similar to the one. Actually, I think it's a little more compact than the one Jason was showing. That is the GSS rain deflector. That you can put over your lens, and you can see what it looks like here. It has a little motor on the side and spins the glass, a circular glass deflector that's in front of the lens, and it has these little ports along the side to deflect the rain that is spun off that glass so that it doesn't get on everything else. It diffuses that rain splatter that comes off the lens and or snow because it uses a centrifugal force. Unless a piece of snow happens to land in the center, then it will go.
Oh, yeah. What it's going to do, it's in stasis. Yeah, it was interesting. A couple of the shots I thought looked really good because there was blur in certain places, but the camera operators, and I caught this a couple of times, were so good on some of the primary cameras that they would find an undiffused area to put their subject in and let it be kind of a frame. I thought that was lovely, but a lot of camera operators didn't do that, so you'd find the main singer there with a big blob over their face, and that's always death. It's hard to work in the rain. I know it's a tough business. Alex?
I thought their video was pretty impressive. Did we show that video? I was looking the video. I wasn't, but this is the video here, so you can see it to start. This one starts the GSS starting to spin, and then you're going to see it just as it picks up speed. It slowly. You kind of hear the motor running too, so you don't want to do it in a place that you need it. But I'm assuming that it just stays on. Like it's not like you're trying to get it off. It's just if you don't. But for this kind of thing, it looks pretty effective. It's interesting.
Yeah, also, if you're flying your drone in the rain, just be real
I think this is a
careful
helicopter
about that.
shot.
Yeah, this might be a Tyler mount on
that's a news. That's like a news. That's what I think that for a news gathering. I think that they're putting it on the outside. It's interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. MomentsLab claimed that its video AI MXT 1.5 outperforms leading AI models like GPT-4o, Google Gemini 1.5 Pro, and Nvidia VILA 1.5 in long video understanding. Do you agree?
Alex Lindsay, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I think that MomentsLab. I looked at what Paul posted there. They're talking about shot understanding, shot grouping into sequences, overall video summarization. So, yeah, they picked very, very specific things that they got really good at, and then they compared it with other ones that aren't specialized for that, and said we're better. So that might be the case. So I'd be interested to see them compete with something like Strata, which is designed to do something very similar to what they're doing, as opposed to a generalized solution that they're competing against. So it's like we built a race car, and it's faster than the car that you bought at the lot. Okay, so it does the one thing. So anyway, I don't know if it's better than them overall, but it might be better at those specific things. This is going to be a big part of AI. I think that what Michael Cioni is working on with Strata and what they're doing here is the ability to look at lots of sequences and make lots of decisions and allow you to find. I want to bring Michael back on. He posted something to LinkedIn. I guess they've got hundreds of people using it now, and they've had millions of tags created, and so they are. But what they're doing is able to look at all the footage that you shot for something and then itemize everything automatically, so that you can say, show me all the shots that had a wine glass in it, or all group these shots together. And I think that's going to be pretty amazing. As that technology gets better, it was a lot of assistant editor work that will be done by a computer pretty soon, I think. So I think that's going to be leaving, hopefully, the assistant editors to do something more meaningful than go through and tag every frame for something that was there.
Alex, should we reach out to him, see if he wants to come in, or are you still trying to keep it clear?
We'll see. We'll see if we can
let me
bring.
give him a
Well,
call and see if Thursday.
we're not doing second hours, but what we're looking at is bringing specials that will start in the next year, and then we're looking at bringing on folks maybe in the first 15 minutes of the show, just like, hey, it's not a whole hour. We're just going to bring someone on, have them spend a couple minutes talking about an update, and then answer a couple questions, and then we go back to our regularly scheduled program too. So that's another way we're going to look at that.
Okay, well, let's chat about it, and if you want to try one out, certainly could do that.
Yeah.
Courtney Gooden.
I just wanted to point out this isn't video generative AI. It's AI assist for editing. So it's making editorial decisions for you, I guess, and putting together a.
Well, I think it's really tagging everything for you. Right. I think that's what it's doing. Is it's gathering all that information. I don't think even that it's even editing for you. It's just giving you all the metadata so that you can find all the things you're looking for while you're editing.
An organizational tool, not a generative tool.
Yeah, more a digital virtual AE, not so it's an assistant editor who would normally be going through and identifying scenes in the raw field footage, correcting them if it needs to be corrected and things like that, and preparing them for an editor to actually sit down and build the story with. So sounds like that to me. Don't know. Let's go to the next question.
Tommy Johnson in St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. What DAWs are the panel using and why?
Alexander Knight, start us off.
I'm using Pro Tools because I've been using that for 25 years. I've tried to spend time with other DAWs. When you spend that much time with one application, you know all the shortcuts, you really know how it operates. It's really hard to switch. Although I do have to say I'm looking very closely at what PreSonus is doing with Studio One. I think they're doing incredible development work on rapidly innovating on that thing. I mean, every time I look at it, they have a whole new set of features. They've got Atmos integration. So they're doing lots of good work on that. So I'm trying to spend a little bit more time to mess around with it, and that looks like a good option. But these days, I tell people, it's like when people ask you, what's the best microphone? The best one for you is the one that you're most comfortable with, and just pick one. They're all very, very powerful, and just learn it really well.
Alex Lindsay.
Mickey said that Pro Tools is for post-production because we collaborate with studios across the globe. I would argue that it is the most powerful waveform editing tools. He said that Reaper for batch processing samples for creating sound libraries and game work. And he said our composers mostly use Logic for its fantastic MIDI editing capabilities. For me, I use Logic because I've been using it for a long time. Same thing as Alexander. I've just been using it for a long time. But I would say that same as Alexander, I'm watching PreSonus' Studio One because I've never seen a DAW evolve that quickly. Like it seems like every 6 months it's doubled in feature set, and it doesn't have any. It doesn't appear to have any technical debt. So it's just like they're starting from scratch, knowing that surround is important, knowing that these things are important, knowing what's important and being able to write from the ground up again. I think that's what it looks like they're doing, and they're just moving incredibly quickly. So I haven't used it very much yet. I downloaded a demo of it, but I want to dig into that a little bit more because it's a fascinating speed at which it's working, especially in the area of surround.
Jason Bache.
Yeah, for multi-tracking, I agree. You can't beat Logic. It is the one that I am fastest in. But when you count the number of hours, I started in radio, and I was just kind of, ingrained into me was Adobe Audition. It was just the fastest possible way to get things in and out. And it's a really, really old interface. But yeah, it's kept up with the time, so I like it.
Craig Kadoki?
I'm also a Logic Pro user. I've been using it for quite a number of years now. I have to use Pro Tools at work. That was what they chose. But I'm still faster on Logic. I'm also really trying to keep an eye on Reaper because it's really powerful for what it costs, and not only just for audio, but the amount they can do with video work as well.
Alex Lindsay.
I still use Audition because of the spectrogram. The spectrogram view is not something that exists anywhere else in some of the editing tools there, so I still have that available.
And I use Logic, but I don't own the program because the Logic part of the audio in Final Cut Pro is there, and I mostly work in video, so it's nice to have access to all that Logic filtering and things like that directly in my video editing software. Next, final question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan asks, my audio equipment has been in closet for years. Now in my new space, should I bring it back out? 6-disc CD player, dual cassette deck, and receiver.
Alex, what do you think? Should Tony?
Other than putting it behind you as a relic, there's no reason to bring it back in and try to use it in any way, shape, or form. Maybe the receiver. If the receiver is 1080p or it has video and it's 1080p or whatever, maybe. But outside of that, I probably just use it as a showcase.
Jason Beish.
Tony, I'll answer your question with a question. Does it make you feel good to use it? Do you enjoy using it? Do you have things that you wouldn't otherwise be playing if it wasn't there for your use? Do you know what every button does? In which case, that's the compelling reason. Other than that, probably not.
Courtney Gooden.
You should definitely take it out of the closet and run it over to Goodwill, because they'll be happy to dispose of it for you. I personally have a 6-disc. I had a 6-disc CD changer in my car, and I had one in my stereo. And I'm looking at over here, 26 6-disc cartridges still full of CDs that I don't know what's on them. I don't know what's in them. I don't have a machine that will take the cartridges anymore. And so I have to take out all the discs and rip them if I want to rip them. So I just subscribe to, streaming audio. And it's a lot easier to find the stuff that I want and create a playlist that I want. You don't have to wait for the CDs to load. No, don't bring back the CD changer and or the cassette deck. Unless you have something that's only stored on cassette and you want to get it off of there and digitize it before it evaporates.
Paul Wallace.
Yeah. When I was at Sam's, I noticed they had for $99, they had an Ion Retro Glow Bluetooth speaker, and it looked like an old cassette player, and the speakers had LED lights. So if you want a speaker that's good and it has can play your old cassettes, that looks like a real good option. $99.
Alexander Knight.
I would double check, Tony, that I don't know how old or what vintage that receiver is, but there's a lot of coveted analog gear out there. So just make sure that it's not worth something that you could actually sell if you don't want it anymore. I still have, for me, I'm very analog other than my Apple TV. I have a 2-channel hi-fi setup with Vandersteen speakers and a Audio Lab 8000A integrated amp that's from 1990, which I've recapped, and that thing sounds incredible. So just check and see what you have, see if that receiver is worth anything.
Thank you all for being here and joining us for Office Hours. We appreciate it. We're here every day trying to answer your questions and help as much as we can you to solve problems that you run into. So if you are interested, we'll be here every single day until the end of the year. Our thank yous to our 3 major constituencies, including, I'm going to start today because we have such a large panel, with the panelists who donate their time, come here and use their accumulated knowledge after decades of being in the business to answer your questions and to help try to solve problems for you so that you don't have to get too lost in the weeds of all this changing technology. So our panelists are always amazing, and thank each and every one of you for being here today. To our audience, we call you our producers because you really do affect how the show runs every day. Your votes on the questions, voting up questions, is the primary way we decide what to get to first and what to spend the most time on. And also to the amazing back-end crew. They show up every morning. They volunteer their time from literally all over the world. If you could see a global diagram of the number of people who are making this show happen in such far-flung places, you'd be amazing. And that's just part of what Alex has managed to build up here, this global community of people. If you'd like to be more involved, go to officehours.global and follow the links there, and you can see how you can participate more. Our Clocktraversal today, we have traveled 20,000 miles. That's 32,000 kilometers, or 156 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow.
Jason, my new Ubiquity arrives today. I might ping you later.
Do you have the rack ears?
I will in the new case. I will in the new case. So
anytime you're ready.
Cindy, was this your first weekday?
Yeah, well done,
reader?
Cindy.
Well done, Cindy.
It was
Yeah, great
the
job.
first
Great.
weekday, yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, so now I get to go back and watch myself for the first time. That'll
did
be
great.
fun.
It was great to have you.
Cool.
Yeah, I got excited when I saw your name.
Looking better too. Like the whole setup is looking good.
New lens on the camera. Thank you, Alexander, for the suggestion.
That's great.
And Paul, how many do the candles heat up your house over there in Austin for that birthday cake?
Yeah, I get as much on in this room as I can.
A couple of years ago,
raises it a
someone did
degree
mine.
or two.
So yeah, someone did mine. They attempted to do the whole thing, and I was like, "Don't do it! Don't do it! You need practically a
fire
flamethrower
hazard
to turn them all on. You got to get a flamethrower and then just go across the top sideways, to get them all lit. For mine anyway.
You need LED candles that are programmed to, when they sense air blowing across them, they go out.
Or flicker. That'd be even
But
better.
in Paul's line case, they need to be Cobb LEDs to get enough of them to fit on.
You need to patent that one, Cindy. That's a good one.
I think we should give Paul 80 of those ones that relight themselves.
For sure.
The unstoppable fire hazard.
All right, see you.
y'all
Happy
tomorrow.
birthday, Paul. All right,
Thanks.
see
Happy birthday.
Yeah, it's a
Happy
milestone.
birthday, Paul. Bye, everyone.
Absolutely. Bye.
I'm headed toward that milestone.